back in the days where TV sets were slightly less weight than a small engine block, and the pictures were black and white, there were something called Westerns. Yes, Westerns. Cowboy heroes like The Rifleman, Roy Rogers, and my personal favorite, The Lone Ranger. Now, it's easy to admire the guy who always gets the upper hand against the bad guys. The funny thing about the Lone Ranger is that he wasn't alone. He had a sidekick by the name of Tonto, and sometimes it was Tonto who actually rescued the Lone Ranger. They were loyal to each other. They watched each other's backs. You would never see a circumstance where the Lone Ranger and Tonto were surrounded by renegade Indians. And the Lone Ranger is saying, "Tonto, I guess this is it. We're goners." To which Tonto replied, "What do you mean we, paleface?" Well, that probably didn't happen. Nope, they stuck together, and it was great. Used to love watching it. But even the Lone Ranger had a sidekick. Now, reality is this. Even heroes need to be rescued from time to time. So if you try to navigate your life on earth without ever receiving help, without ever having advice, or an occasional rescue, your destiny is to crash and burn. That's reality. Long-term isolation is never healthy. Now, taking a different tack, I want you to think about Christians that are living under a totalitarian regime, countries like China or Russia, or some Islamic states that persecute Christians. Christians value fellowship with one another, but in some of these places, gathering together as Christians could wind you up in jail. It's interesting for you to consider this, that followers of Jesus are willing to risk going to jail just to worship, read, discuss the Bible, and pray. Here in America, the greatest risk of attending church is being late for the kickoff of an NFL game, or worse yet, not sleeping in on a day off, okay? That's our risk. You know, it's easy in America to be a Lone Ranger. As a matter of fact, we even informed Tonto, "Hey, you're not needed. I can take care of myself." That's what we think in our spiritual life. We take this viewpoint even into our relationship with God. We bought into a lie, the idea that I can be a Christian all by myself, in isolation. It's kind of funny. I've heard people talk about, my church is the outdoors, in the woods. That's my church. That's my special place with God. And then they say, that's where I go to church, not realizing that the word church actually means ecclesia. It means the gathering. I go to the gathering. So who you having church with? Squirrels? Crazy. Isolation Christians have their own personal vision of being spiritual. And we can abbreviate being spiritual with BS. And that's pretty much what it is, BS. If you're a follower of Jesus, it means you follow. Doesn't that apply to you? You're an isolationist? It means that you hold to what Jesus and the apostles taught. It means you are a lifelong student of truth. The Apostle Paul addressed the dangers of Lone Ranger faith and isolation in his letter to the Hebrews. They actually did talk about this stuff. Let's go to Hebrews. Hebrews chapter 10, verses 23 through 25. Let us hold unswervingly to the hope we profess, for he who promised is faithful. And let us consider how we may spur one another toward love and good deeds, not giving up meeting together as some are in the habit of doing, but encouraging one another, and all the more as you see the day approaching. When they talk about the day, they're saying, hey, Jesus is eventually going to return for his church, his followers. What's that church going to look like? And so the idea is, first, if you're a follower of Jesus, you stand for something. Your ultimate hope is in Jesus. And so number one, You got to be hanging on to the very thing you profess. In other words, don't just talk about Christian faith, actually do it. Okay. Second, if you follow Jesus, you have sidekicks, people who help and encourage you. Oh, and there are people that vice versa, And so you encourage others, they encourage you. The idea is that the reason we gather together is that we're accountable to one another. The reason we gather together is that we help each other to walk the talk. And that's a big deal. The third area here is that if Christians don't hang out together, they have zero opportunity to help and encourage one another. And so he's saying, just straight up, don't give up meeting together after some are in the habit of doing. It's saying, don't do that. Are you catching this? Evidently, Christians in the first century could get a bit lazy when it comes to discipleship. People don't change very much, do they? I'm really glad that the Apostle Paul got on the case of these people and he addressed this problem about getting lazy, about neglecting regularly gathering with other Christians. Do you know that Christians during a pandemic like this can gradually accept spiritual isolation as okay when it's not? It's not okay. If you're allowing your faith to just become totally isolated, it's time to end that. It's time to get out of isolation. Call somebody, FaceTime somebody, use Zoom. Get together one-on-one with someone if you're comfortable. But whatever you do, don't isolate in your faith. Christian faith was not designed for that. Even when Jesus sent people out, he sent them in twos. Maybe, if nothing else, you got somebody to argue with. But he sent them out together. We need people in our life so we can get in the Bible and talk about what we read. We can pray together, pray for each other. We can encourage each other, and we can also hold each other accountable. Don't isolate. Don't be a lone ranger. Oh, maybe you should be a lone ranger because he had Tonto. So, God wants you to thrive.
What does fellowship mean to you? How does fellowship with other Christians help you grow? What kind of isolation threatens spiritual health? What are some ways to overcome isolation? Thanks for watching. If you'd like to enjoy more by the Vineyard Church, like us on Facebook at www.facebook.com/The Vineyard Church Iron Range. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, The Vineyard Church Iron Range. Or visit our website, www.ironrangevineyard.org. Lastly, subscribe to our e-newsletter to stay connected. Do so by visiting our website and clicking subscribe to our e-newsletter on the homepage.